Whether you liked or disliked Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, there's no doubt that the film has made a statement when it comes to its box office. In terms of 2024, it becomes the third highest debut, behind only Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, and it nearly broke a huge record in September because it's only just behind 2017's It as being the biggest September opening ever. So let's look at the reasons why this supernatural comedy has started off so well. First things first, this is a sequel to a cult classic film that came out back in 1988 in Beetlejuice, and so you have many different generations interested to see this second installment of this story, which also includes many of the same cast returning. But it is perhaps one of the new cast members that provides a significant draw. With Jenna Ortega's involvement, you have all those fans from Wednesday coming on board to see her again in this new film. It's a similar style, it is again Tim Burton, and also she does have over 38 million followers on Instagram, which certainly does help. And so not only do you have a current day Scream Queen as part of your cast, but you also have Winona Ryder back, and she's still pretty relevant herself because of Stranger Things. And then added to that, you also have Catherine O'Hara, who just fills in that generation gap there to have a full generation of women to really appeal to the female audience. And all of this is backed up from the data we can see here from post-track scores that say that 25% of audiences went for that team up of Ortega and Winona Ryder. And also, according to Deadline, females represented 59% of the overall audience, with 62% female for the kid demographic. But considering this film is titled Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, or as some have shortened it to BJ, I should probably mention the main star Michael Keaton, because he himself is a big draw because his character is a larger-than-life character who grabs your attention. Now, he is a character who could have easily been overexposed in this film because of how well loved he is, and so the creators could have been inclined to put him in the film much more than he needed to be. But what they did do well here is just, like they did in the original, put him in the film in small doses. And in the same way as like with Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, you don't want him to be taking over the film because he's great as that character to come in and sort of elevate the film when it needs to be elevated. And when you look at the modern world, he actually fits in quite well because of how silly and chaotic he is. And we've even seen Michael Keaton do TikToks as the character, and as we saw at the Oscars, he's shown himself to be a good sport when it comes to comedy skits.
He's right here, look!
You have a lot of nerve to show your face
Oh,
around
yeah,
here.
you got,
Son of a bitch.
you are a real beak breaker.
Will Beetlejuice Beetlejuice though have enough legs to build on this promising start? Well, if we look at the rest of September, there aren't any big releases coming out to really compete with it. So, we do have, Speak No Evil and Wolves, but they're nothing too big where you'd expect them to take the audience away from this movie. So, I think it's got a whole month now to get as many tickets sold as possible before Joker 2 gets released. And it's also worth noting that Joker 2, as well as Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, are both from Warner Brothers. And as a year, they've done quite well because we've had Dune Part 2 at the start. We also had Godzilla x Kong. Twisters didn't do as well worldwide, but it did well domestically. And now we've got these two films added on to the success from last year with Barbie. And so with all that mentioned, it looks like Beetlejuice Beetlejuice has a decent release slot here, because when it eventually does finish its cinema run, it will then be released on digital just in time for Halloween. Similarly to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice does have a few too many characters and plot lines, and so it's it's a bit like an excited kid in a toy shop. It's like just pick one or two and get on with it, but instead it tries to just have all these different things happening at the same time, and so it does struggle under the weight of all of that. In particular, Monica Bellucci's Dolores and Willem Dafoe's Wolf Jackson are characters who could have been cut from the film and you wouldn't lose too much. However, saying that, I think Willem Dafoe does bring quite a bit of comedy to the film in his scenes. But when you look at the actual story, the strongest plot line involved Jenna Ortega's Astrid, but it just takes way too long into the film for that to really get going, and so this film does lack quite a lot of focus. So although there is a lot of fat on the meat when it comes to this film, you do enjoy being in this world and the charm it brings, and unlike a lot of the other legacy sequels, it doesn't rely too much on nostalgia. It still is a film in its own right that is, enjoyable to watch. And I think, with this film actually having a budget of $100 million, it's pretty decent when you have all these different movie stars involved as well. And, if you consider the probably $100 to $150 million marketing budget, you think this film will probably make a profit, and so we may even get a Beetlejuice. Yeah, I said it. And as we've seen with Tim Burton films in the past, he does use practical effects well here, and there's also some pretty inventive ways of giving exposition, including a stop motion scene as well. And even though there is so much going on in this film, when it eventually reaches that climax, it all does come together quite well. There's a song involving a cake being left out in the rain, which I think will stick with people, and it ends on a strong note, which means when you leave the cinema, you're leaving with a satisfying aftertaste. So if you've seen Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where do you stand on this legacy sequel? And if you want to watch another video on screen, you can see a couple of my recent reviews.